Thank you very much. Shalom to everyone. And wherever time zone you are in, I am in Jerusalem right now. And I would like to thank David Mendez, although he's not here, who invited me to speak and actually put a challenge to me because I never really researched the aspect of Sephardic Jewish community in Romania, even though in my house, as I grew up in Israel, my grandmother would every so often say that her family roots are Sephardim, and she was born and her family came from Ploiești. I'll mention later on. I also want to thank Ali and Ton for helping me to set up. So the way I'm going to present today is a brief presentation, and then I will have some slides that we will talk and discuss about these people and also what's happening today in Romania as far as the Sephardic Jewish community. So Romania, as you can see in this picture here, it's Romania in the 1600s. However, the size is the same today, just that it's differently divided. This is today's Romania, and we'll keep it here. It's from 1918, right after the First World War, when it got its independence. So Romania at the time of the 16th century, if we start then, we must start sometime, was a principality state, meaning a prince will rule a certain geographical area. Such were considered at the time the Moldavia, Transylvania, Wallachia, and Banat over here. And you can see the Ottoman Empire showing that it rules, Austrian Empire here in the north, and basically the rest, small principalities, each one. These principalities represented cultural and historical elements, which to everybody's surprise, they are still today. So it left a certain amount of impression from those days. Romania wins its independence from the Ottoman Empire by siding with Russia in the Russo-Turkish War. It also acquires a coastline on the Danube Delta. The architecture of the city Tulcea, this is just one small example here, a city on the Danube coast, is full proof of the Ottoman Empire ruling in the region.
If I may interrupt you for a moment, Peninah, can you make the presentation full screen?
Full screen? Oh, how do you do that?
Slideshow, it's above. And
oh boy. Slideshow.
And the red.
I don't.
Above in the red region.
I don't see it either.
It's
if you press the keys Shift and F5, it will go into slideshow.
Shift and F5.
Shift and 5.
I did, and nothing happened.
Shift
5.
F5.
Yeah, F5. I see F5. Nothing happened.
Try Shift and 5. But it should be Shift and F5.
Shift and then F5.
Yeah.
Nothing happens.
No. Sorry.
How can you do it here? More?
In the
upper-
top row, in the red bar, if you go along, you'll see next to home, insert, design, transitions, animation.
But I have here this black thing that doesn't move,
Ah,
that covers up, you see?
Then we will do it this way.
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's
There
okay.
was a,
It's,
okay.
yes.
All right, so the architecture in the city of Tulcea, which is here still, a city on the Danube coast, is full proof of the Ottoman Empire ruling in the region. In 1881, Romania becomes a kingdom. General remark, following the ruling of the Ottoman Empire, which ended in 1877, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which ended in 1918 at the end of First World War, the local Romanian community was left with some cultural aspects of these nations: food, clothing, general traditions and customs, and so on. Austro-Hungarian Empire ruled Central Europe, including North Transylvania, all this area, including the Satmar and Maramuresh, between 1867 and 1918. After World War I, in 1918, Romania becomes an independent kingdom. However, in 1940, Romania gives back to Hungary as a deal with the Nazi Germany, Northern Transylvania for the next years until the end of World War II in 1945. Another change happens between 46 and 47 until 1989. It's the communist regime. Exactly last week, 33 years ago, was the revolution in Romania that stopped communism. And since 1989 to date, the government is a parliamentary republic. All these historical highlights do affect the Jewish community at large and the Spanish Jews as well. I'm going to use in most cases the word Spanish, which is in Romanian Spanish. Jewish community of Romania is predominantly of Ashkenazi Jews. Due to its location, surrounded by the former Galicia large Jewish communities. However, to everyone's surprise, the first Jews coming to Romania were Sephardim, Spaniards, via the Ottoman Empire, the Balkan region ruling days. Although Jews arrived even as early as the 2nd century via the Romans, that's why Romania is called Romania, because the Romans named it, which must have been former Israelite slaves. The Sephardic Jews were well known as professionals, especially doctors, but also wealth merchants which served the Turks. Many remained in the country once the Ottoman Empire ceased to rule and served as advisors to the courts of the Romanian kings and nobles. The community numbers were great philanthropists. For example, most of the 1848 war was financially supported by the Spanish Jewish community, especially Halfon banker, I will get back to him later, and Elias, who was a banker and many more things beyond being a very wealthy Jew. Jews were not granted Romanian. What's going on here? What is that? What happened? Am I in or out? Hello? Can anybody
You
help
are
me?
in. We can
I
see.
am in, so why am I not seeing the presentation? New share.
Mm,
What's happening?
try the bottom share screen.
We can see it, Peninah.
You see it, but I don't. New share. But I need to see too, to know what you see.
We are now seeing a map of Romania.
Yeah, that's what I showed before.
Mhm.
So what do we do? Here. Please move this window. What do they tell me? What happened?
I don't
I'm
know.
sorry, everybody.
Now see a black rectangle.
Spot on it, right? Can you, Ali, can you let me in to start again?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Here,
Oh,
I have this. That's not good. I need
oh,
to
I can
see.
now see you full screen.
Right, that's what I see. So maybe share
Okay.
screen. Let's try again. Oh, here it came back. But
Yes,
all
and
right.
maybe you can try to press F5.
Yeah, maybe I'll try shift.
No, not shift.
No, just F5.
Just F5. I did. Nothing.
Doesn't work. Then at the bottom, you see this slide rule from 0 to 100%. And next to it, to the left, is a diagram. If you click that, maybe
I
that
don't know.
works.
I'm very bad at these things. You'll forgive. Here? This way.
Yeah, no.
That's already too much. 170.
To the right of that slide rule.
Now it's at 90%. No, it's
No,
not.
to the right, there's something that looks like an X, a kind of white X to the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
To the left.
Press
Not to the
Nothing.
left, sorry.
No. Okay, let me continue. Please.
Yes.
Okay, so I did, where was I? Let me see. Yes, so we are professionals. And as I said, in 1848, the war was financially supported by two major, very, very rich community people, the Halfon, keep in mind, banker, and Elias, which are very Sephardic names, Halfon and Elias. Now, Jews were not granted Romanian citizenship. This is a very important thing through the ages. It was obtained privately by authorities as per how important or useful for the country was that specific person. You see? Until the Berlin Treaty in 1878, when it stipulated in Article 44 that non-Christians in Romania, including both Jews and Muslims, should receive full citizenship. But I'll tell you in brackets that it didn't really always work. Sometimes there were some governments or offices or whoever that really didn't grant to every Jew. I'm just speaking about the Jews. Again, if you were in a high position, then you were granted immediately. But if you were a farmer, let's say here where my family comes from, Maramures, nothing, you didn't get anything. Romania was in between the trade routes of Poland and the Ottoman Empire. Many merchants traveled along these routes, and some even settled So they became part of that specific community. And that's how they integrated themselves. And that's why many people don't know the real roots today. Most of the cities outside of Bucharest were Craiova here, Craiova. We have Bacău and Galați. And again, it's because it's along a long river that goes into the sea. Constanța, of course, that's right on the Black Sea. Iași was also because of Moldova and the former Russia, whatever country was there. You know, Europe has a situation of constant moving borders and lines. So most of the people settled along the southern part, with Bucharest being the capital and being the center. I wish I would be able to say that the Romanian Sephardic Jewish community left a historical mark on Romania. Unfortunately, there may be 10, seriously, 10, who know they are of Sephardic descendants. All other have been intermarried with Ashkenazim. Maybe they moved to other European countries, such as UK and Switzerland, just before World War II. And women, by adopting their husband's married last name, completely lost any possible Sephardic identifiable last name. I must say that a very interesting phenomena was that the community was very active up to the beginning of Second World War. And then they completely disappeared. They sold their businesses, they completely disappeared. I'm wondering, this is something that needs much more deeper research, to find out if they kind of felt that something very bad is coming upon Romania. Don't know. However, what is left is a Jewish heritage site. The major one is the Spaniol Cemetery, which soon we will see it, which I heard, as I said before, since I was a young girl, that my great-great-great-grandmother is a descendant, and she is actually buried there. I did go once with my late father, and we visited her tombstone. In this cemetery, there is also 2 rows dedicated to the people who were murdered during the January 21st to 23rd, 1941 pogrom that took place in Bucharest by the Iron Guard. Now, just a general remark, genealogy, which most of you know, is not only the place and the name of your family, but what did they do? What did they think? If at all, we can find out. The Sephardic Jewish community was recognized only starting in 1730, and the community continued to develop the city and also generally the country by the economy until World War II. They numbered about 7,000, and all of them were centrally almost located in Bucharest. Most of the population was well off, holding positions such as doctors and merchants and stockbrokers and bankers, landowners, money changers, industrialists, attorneys, even actors and opera singers. The Sephardic Jewish community considered themselves superior to the Ashkenazi Jews who arrived from Poland or Russia, or wherever life was unbearable for the Jews. The Ashkenazi Jews, many of the Hasidic origin, especially here in the northern part, they came. My family was a Hasidic family. That's on my mother's side, by the way. The father's side is from Bucharest. Viewed the Sephardic Jews as more secular and less spiritual and faithful to their religion. Aharon Yehuda Leib Horowitz, an author, wrote, "The Sephardic Jews here in Bucharest," he meant, "have not yet learned the value of physical labor, which sustains those who work in it, and most of them make their living only from trade." This is a perception. In 1850, a dispute over ritual slaughter, kosher shchita, broke out between the Sephardic and the Ashkenazi Jews that brought to a deterioration in their relations. So, in case you are wondering what's happening in Israel or anywhere else about politics, already then there were disputes. The two communities grew isolated from each other over time. Armand Levy, a French publicist, and Adolphe Crémier, the French Minister of Justice, just imagine yourself, try to make shalom, try to make peace, but with no success. Now, this is also an indication that in Europe, the community of the Spaniol, of the Sephardim, was very well connected. If the Minister of Justice of France is intervening to see if he can make some peace, I think that's very special, very unique for that period of time. The Romanian government, however, enjoyed financial support, loans, and financial counseling from the Sephardic Jews, who were viewed as patriots and philanthropists for their financial contribution to education, culture, and charitable institutions. We can say the Sephardic community integrated and assimilated into the non-Jewish Romanian society, where the Ashkenazi Jews kept distance from the Romanian society and institutions, which sometimes is the beginning of anti-Semitism because of the unknown. Instead of opening up and working together, they were trying to isolate themselves. Okay, so now I would like to make some special mention of special people, and we will continue to see how these people contributed and developed the Jewish community in Bucharest, mainly, again, as I say. So we will start with the first person, Jacques Menachem Elias. Now, I want you to know the way my grandmother, who was born in 1901 in Ploiești, and the reason why they were Sephardim, Spaniols in Ploiești was because there was there the refineries of oil. So again, it's a special business. Kept talking to me many times about Elias Hospital and the former Elias. So now we are going to hear. So he was born in 1844 in Bucharest. He died in 1923 in Bucharest. However, he was buried in Vienna because all his family was buried in Vienna. He started as the owner of a sugar factory. became a banker, and had 9 buildings including in the following cities: Vienna, Berlin, Rome, and Paris. He had 2 hotels in Bucharest, one Continental, which is still today there, and the other one is Patria. By the way, to the people that are here, if you ever think to visit Europe and have a different flavor, I highly recommend to visit Romania. It's a large country, as you can see, but just choose one specific area rather than rush, 10 days, you sit more on the bus than you see the real thing. So yes, it's a very pretty place, very interesting architecture and life as well. So back to Mr. Elias, as you can see, he's been extremely well-to-do. However, he kept a very modest life. He also never got married, and he was living, it says here, where I did some research, in an ordinary apartment, and he never visited clubs or casinos. He was the advisor of King Carol I. He definitely had citizenship if he had this kind of a job. Now, he wrote, even though he passed away, as you can see, in 1923, he wrote his will in February 1914, almost 10 years before. And since he did not have any children, he decided to designate everything to the Association of the Romanian Academy. And in his will, he specified that he wants in particular to build a hospital, and he wanted at least 100 beds, and in the most modern condition. We soon will see the hospital that happened. And the hospital is called the Elias Hospital, after his name. He died in 1923, and he was taken to Vienna. And in Vienna, at the mausoleum of in Vienna, at the cemetery, the example of architecture is extremely Moorish and Renaissance. And that was built before he died. Again, it seems that he planned everything ahead of time. Now, the hospital was built only in 1938, and it's very modern, and it has 200 beds. Okay, so this is Mr. Elias. Now, here is Spitalul Universitar de Urgență Elias. This is the logo, and it says exactly what I read. So it is a university hospital for emergencies. 200 beds only. This is an aerial view. It is exactly in the area where the large synagogue was located, which we will see soon. And here is another picture of some doctors, just to show how up to date it is. Now, I always like to have also some women in our stories. So this is Garcia Venezian Elias Geborn in German. She was born as last name of Elias, but she married a Hillel family, a member of the Hillel family. This is her tombstone, also in Vienna. And here, somewhere, I guess, on one of the sides, it states all her relationships to the rest of the families. And I want to read you only because I want you to hear some last names of the people, of the Sephardim at the time. First of all, her name was also known not just as Garcia, but also as Grazia. So, and you can see she was born in Bucharest, 1817, but she really passed away 1892 in Vienna. Now we have here on these lists, we have the last name Hillel, we have the last name Manoach, we have Elias a few times, we have Halfon, so there were some relation. Now, what we, I think, learn from here is that at the beginning of their times in Romania, they would marry in between the other Sephardim families. And as the time has passed and they went into the 19th century or 20th century, they started to marry out of the Sephardi community. What other name? No? Oh, Alfasi is also a very Sephardi name. So all these names are related to Madame Grazia Hillel. Now, the other person is also this lady. She is Helen. She comes from the Hillel Manoach family, but her new last name became Farashi. Again, it's a Sephardi name. She is quite mysterious, born 1841, unknown, and she also died unknown year and location. Now, why did I choose her? Because, again, as I said, it's important to see what they wear, their hairdo. Many times I get pictures and people say, can you tell me approximately what was the year of this picture taken by the way people are wearing their clothes, like styles? So you can see here jewelry, a very special type of either the top of a dress or a very special blouse, her hairdo. So we gave her some honor here. And now we move to Mr. Solomon Halfon. And he was born in Turkey in 1790. And he died in 1862 in Bucharest. He was a leader of the Jewish community sometime. He backed up the revolution of 1848. I told you he was a banker, so he supported the event. And the other important thing he did, he was supporting culture. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of the Alliance French School. It's a school that started in France, and then it continues in many countries. Some countries who feel that they want their high school standards to be very high, they introduce the school in their country. Mr. Halfon supported such a school in Bucharest. We have a few of the Alliance schools in Israel too. Excuse me. So besides supporting, let's say, the war and the revolution, he also supported the culture, which was very important for all of them. Now, we also find that through the Jewish Chronicle of October 24th, 1873, that one of the sons of Mr. Halfon marries a member of the Rothschild family. Her name was Sarah. So that's an interesting move right now. It's 1873. The son decided not to marry somebody from the local community, but he married one of the Rothschilds. He was the first one, and there were many others, not specifically from this family, but from other families that I found out that married into the Rothschild family. And there's another reason why they would be attracted. It's because of the money. So that they marry money with money, not one who doesn't have. Okay, so that's about Mr. Halfon. Now, interestingly enough, there is something in Bucharest today. Mr. Halfon, or the family, had two houses in central Bucharest. The address is still the same. It's called Șoseaua Kiselev, which means the road of Kiselev. When you come from the airport and you drive into Bucharest, you come through this road. And now I'm going to make a point. Next time I take the taxi, I'm going to ask him to stop at this address. I want to see what's the situation of the house. To me, it looks that the house presently is probably something like this. And there are lots of them on this road. Some of the better ones, better condition, are houses of various embassies. It's a very fancy street, very wide, lots of trees. You can't really see here in this picture, but it's a very famous street. And I'm wondering what happened to this house. So that's the Halfon family. Now, David, who's not here with us, asked me to say some things about Haham Moses Gaster. Now, Ashkenazim say rabbi. Sephardim speak about Haham. Haham in Hebrew means wise, smart, assuming and knowing that a rabbi is a smart man. He's a learned man, a scholar. So Haham Moses Gaster was born in 1856 in Bucharest and died in 1939 in UK. Now, who was he? He had a number of titles. He was a scholar, a rabbi, a Zionist, a folklorist, and his grandfather had been a community leader and synagogue founder. But his father was the consul of Netherlands in Bucharest. So he again came from a very special family. Now, why did he get to UK? He was a non grata persona in Romania. Gaster was banished from Romania in 1885, along with others who had campaigned to publicize restrictive legislative measures and administrative abuse of Jews in Romania. So he left the UK. He became the rabbi of the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish congregation in London for many, many years. And one more interesting fact, the Declaration of Balfour that was given to us permission to come back to Israel was written, the draft, I should mention, sorry, the first draft was written at his residence in February 7th, 1917. And in the presence of Chaim Weizmann, who was the first president of the State of Israel, Nahum Sokolov, James de Rothschild, Mark Skies, and Herbert Samuel. So they kicked him out of Romania. He made a name to himself in UK. So it wasn't so bad. Moving right along. So it's in the recording so David can hear it. Okay, moving right along, we come to the very large temple that was in Bucharest. This is the big temple. And it was also called Kahal. Kahal in Hebrew means congregation. Bet Knesset is a synagogue. And what does Bet Knesset means? It means the house of the congregates. So this is the name that they gave, Kahal Grand Synagogue, Sinagoga Mare Española. And it was in the Vekereshti neighborhood. This is the interior, extremely, extremely pretty and nice. And so the synagogue was built in 1818. However, the building was destroyed by the far-right legionnaires in 1941. That was when the pogrom was. And the synagogue was rebuilt after the war. And then in 1986 happened another disaster, but I want to show you first one more picture. This is how the synagogue looked after the pogrom. You see, this is the exact location, just that it's so badly ruined. I want to tell you a family brief story about the pogrom. My grandparents, on the side of my father, my grandfather, Yanku Yaakov, was a tailor. However, he was one of the 3 tailors of the king. He was very well connected. They were assimilated Jews, what we would call liberals. And the chief of police, 3 days, let's say 3 days would be the 17th or the 18th of January, came to my grandpa and said to him, Yanku, I don't know the date, but in the next few days is going to be very bad for the Jews in Bucharest. Somebody will come and tell you, but start to get some food and water. And when the person comes and tells you the right date, go in the basement with your wife and with your 2 sons and stay there. And even if you hear that they break the windows of your house or the door or anything upstairs, don't go up. I gave instructions not to touch your house. Brackets, that reminds me, pass over this house. But we don't know, maybe they will just do it for the sake to show that they do something. And after a few days, a simple policeman came and said, tomorrow. And tomorrow was the 21st of January. My grandfather, grandmother, my father and his brother went in the basement and stayed there for 3 days. When they came up after, it was devastating. The stories, the way people were murdered, killed, were just too much. But as always, there are miracles or good things happen. So that's how our family was saved from this pogrom. May they rest in peace, all those who didn't. There was another small Spanish temple, synagogue in the area. Usually Jews don't have just one specific place that they go to pray. They have one big one, and then they have small ones. And the reason basically is because in those days, people would really pray 3 times a day. And if you live somewhere, let's say close to the large, big synagogue, but you work in the market or wherever, farther away, then the workers, the people, even the boss would create a small synagogue. So that's why we have in many cities, we have more than one synagogue. Or we have what we call shtibels. A shtibel in Yiddish is like a little house. So they would create these little shtibels close to where they were, again, not to go so far to the large synagogue. Okay, now we arrived to the cemetery, the Spaniol cemetery. Oh, I'm sorry. There is something important that I missed. Today, the large synagogue is not there anymore. Why? Ceausescu, the ruler during communism, decided in 1986 that he needs this corner of the street where this beautiful synagogue would be, and for the enlargement, for whatever he thought that he had plans for the city. And in July 21st, 1986, it was demolished. But I want you to know, I am reading here a copy of the Jewish Telegraphic Agency from that time, from July 86. And it says here about all the people that intervened in order to stop him. Even President Reagan was involved, and the American local embassy, and B'nai B'rith and Anti-Defamation League, and nothing helped. And he demolished it. But I want you to know that it wasn't only in Bucharest, because in my city, Sighet, where my mother comes, and I'm very active there, the same thing happened. In Sighet, there were 10 big synagogues. In 1986, were left 3. One is standing still, that's the only one we have, and 2 others he demolished. And the sad part is that he didn't let people to take out the religious ceremonial objects, meaning the eternal light, Ner Tamid, the Aron Kodesh, the Holy Ark, the holy books, the Torahs. So when it was demolished with everything in. And that was in 86. 3 years later, the revolution was, but it was fait accompli, was done. So I wanted, sorry, but I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. So we are back at the cemetery. And this cemetery is called the Sephardic Cemetery. It's very large. It's about 4 to 5 hectares. Now, just to give you an idea, 1 hectare is almost 2.5 acres. So you can imagine yourself. It takes almost the whole day to walk around there. And it has 10,300 graves. Now, I do want to bring to your attention that not all of them are of Spanish descent. Definitely the ones until Second World War, yes. But after that, I have found out by the last names and whatever says next to them that it's famous people. In other words, I mean, that's a compliment. Some people feel that it's a much special or unique or different cemetery that they would like to be buried there. So I found that lots of artsy people are being buried there. Either literature, music, art. Yeah, so that's, in a way, it's a compliment. And the saying here says, Cimitirul Evreiesc de Rit Spaniol, the Jewish cemetery of Spanish descendants. Now, we talked about the First World War, and I want to show you that in this cemetery, there is this obelisk in memory of all the Jewish soldiers who fought in the First World War. My grandfather fought in the First World War. I have his picture. And here you can see their tombstones, but this is a general obelisk in memory, and it's in the Spanish cemetery. Now you might say, okay, what do we do today? Well, some people do things. Last month, Bucharest has a Jewish film festival every year, but it doesn't happen the same month every year. I always tell Dan Schlager, this gentleman who's the manager of the film festival, decide on a month, but don't be any month. In any case, this November was the film festival, and he dedicated 2 days, the 15th and the 16th of November, to Zilele Days Culturi, Culture, Sfarad. So he dedicated to the Days of Culture of Sfarad. It took place at the Institute Cervantes, which is the Cultural Spanish Institute that basically teaches their Spanish and any other activity. So they had these 2 days. Now, what did they offer? They offered a few things. They started with a film of Shlomo Bar, who is a Sephardi in Israel, and he's been making music for the past 30 years where he is bringing or tries to bring the Eastern sound and the Western sound and combine them. And the producer was there also. So they showed the film for one evening. The following day, they had a round table and they spoke about the Sfarad folklore. And there were representatives from Uruguay, from Bulgaria, and from Greece. Of course, these people were from either the embassy or the cultural departments. The last thing that was, Turkey produced an exhibit, which apparently is still there, and the title was Jewry in the Ottoman Empire and Modern Turkey. So that was sponsored by the Turkish embassy. I think that's really extremely encouraging that out of a whole week, 2 days were devoted to the Sepharad culture. Now, one more thing that happened a few years ago was a book, Tales and Traces of Sephardic Bucharest, by the two authors, came out in 2016, and it was such a great success that's out of print. The problem is that in Romania, you don't usually print more than 300 copies, like 300 is stop. So I guess they disappeared very fast. I don't have a copy. So that's where I would like to stop. And I would like to open to questions. I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I will, if I don't know the answer, I will try and find it and get back to the person. But I do want to thank you. And I also want to wish you a happy Hanukkah next Sunday evening. Happy winter holidays. And most of all, that we all should have a very healthy and successful new year. Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Peninah. That was absolutely fascinating, and what vivid stories, and very moving in parts about the pogrom and your own family's circumstances in that. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure there's some questions, and I'll invite people to put their hands up if they want to ask questions. But I have a question that, from what you were saying, the community took shape in the 18th century, in the 1700s, and presumably came from outside Romania, from the Ottoman Empire and sort of other Balkan countries where there were Sephardic communities. But is there any surviving information, birth, marriage, and death registers for the synagogue or for the cemetery? Have these survived that would give some genealogical clues?
I don't have the answer. I will look into it.
Great. And the other thing, somebody else noticed as well, that in the picture that you showed us of the cemetery, which is obviously the First World War monument, the headstones were vertical, and the Sephardic headstones tend to be horizontal. So I don't know if there's is that just the way it developed over the years, or how did that happen?
I think because in Yash is the same thing. Certain communities have this special section for First World War soldiers. And in Yash, it's the same thing. I believe that the non-Jews are the ones who place the tombstones. Therefore, they placed it the way they know it.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is one of the answers that I can think of.
Okay. We have a question from Flora Azulay.
Azulay, yeah, that's
Azulay Stangeland. Were any of the religious objects retrieved from the ruins of the synagogue, or did they perish?
I will answer this question with an analogy what happened in my community in Sighet. The word is that there were people who dug into the ruins and took out, but where they are, nobody knows. So either people took them personally or I don't know. But there is a Jewish museum in Bucharest, but they don't have any of those objects. They might have pictures, but they don't have objects. All their objects are from the two large Ashkenazi synagogues.
That's very unfortunate. Ton, do you want to
It
take
is.
over?
Yeah. Back to the cemetery. Do you know if the graves have been photographed or indexed?
They are indexed, that I
Okay.
know.
And where can we find that? Is it online or do you have to go there in person?
They are online. Now, I think I would like to recommend that Jewish Gen, Romania Genealogy, has obtained many of these records, and they have them posted. Now, you see, nobody really divides them and say, this list is of the Sephardim, this list is of the Ashkenazim. There's no such thing. It's everything mashed together. Only if you know that, let's say, the name Asher, Azulai, Levi, Solomon, you know, these kinds of names, then you can look and find them. But there is. I can send you the name of the person. His name is Michael. He's in charge of the Romanian genealogy on Jewish Gen, and they really obtained a lot of records. I know that for sure.
Okay. I was wondering if there are gravestones that are lying down in that cemetery, or are they all standing up?
The state of this particular cemetery and the other one next door to it is very bad. What do I mean? There are trees growing on the tombstones, lots of vegetation, even to get to on a road, to start to walk on a road, sometimes you can't. They are basically completely left. They do have some people that supposedly have to work or clean or do something, but very little is being done. This is a major problem across Romania at all the cemeteries. And I usually get a lot of emails from unhappy travelers who write to me, well, how is this possible? And what can we do? And all that. We can't do too much. One of the projects that I am going under Tarbut to start in the spring, because you can only work from May till September, the rest of the months are not workable because of the weather, is to involve local students from the high school. And I have already 2 high schools that promised me, and I know that they will do something. So, but this I can do in a small cemetery, not in, in 5 hectares, you know. The problem is that during communism, the way it worked was that the local community, or even in a big city like Bucharest, they would give the space to someone and say, you can plant, like almost every cemetery has walnut trees that have been planted so that the cemetery keeper would collect at the end when the crops of walnuts came, and he would sell them. But what happens is that you know that the trees have roots and they kept growing and growing. And that's the reason why some of the tombstones fall, because the earth is being shaken by the trees, by the roots. There was a time when they would just sow barley or any kind of green. It became as a field, or they would bring in sheep or goats. So they desecrated the place, but this was happening during the communism period. Today, it all depends about the community and how large is the cemetery. The bigger it is, the harder it is to keep it. Just this morning, I got an email from somebody in Cluj who went to see the cemetery, and he said, I know the row, I know the plot, but I couldn't get there because it was so high, the vegetation. So it is a problem.
I was wondering if Romania also had civil marriage, birth, death records, and if they also covered Jews, and when did these records start?
They do have the records, and as I said, the Romanian genealogy is the one who buys them or obtains them, some kind of a deal they have, and they post it. So if you're looking for specifics, they will be able to give you.
Okay.
Could I ask, Peninah, does your foundation maintain links with a sort of diaspora of Romanian Sephardim, maybe who went to America or South America or Paris or whatever? Is there a sort of community of former Romanian Sephardim who sort of keep in touch and are in touch with you?
First of all, let me just say that Tarbut came as a result in 2014 when we observed the 70th anniversary to the deportations that took place in 1944 of this region. Let me go back to the map and you'll see better. Here. We speak about Maramures, this area. This is my area. So people from here were deported to Auschwitz here, let's say, during the month of May 1944. But the whole northern Transylvania was deported anytime from May till the end of June of 1944. I am in touch with people that their roots are here, are from here. To tell you if they are Sephardim or not, usually in my area we're not Sephardim, we're Hasidim, we're those that came from, as I said at the beginning, from the former Galicia that were extremely religious. So that's my answer. But there are people that are in South America and so on, because in 1935, there was a big exodus from Maramures to 3 locations. One group went to Israel, one group went to US, and one group went to South America. So that's why they are Romanians in South America.
Mhm.
There are also Romanians that survived, came to Israel, and in 1956, after the Sinai War, I remember as a kid, left especially to Argentina and to Chile. You know, we Jews are the wandering Jew.
Mhm. Is there a Facebook group for those people?
You mean for my people, for Tarbut?
For this
Yeah.
diaspora of Romanians?
Not, well, first of all, the majority moved to Israel. So there is one called the Romanian Roots, and it's in Hebrew.
Mhm.
There's nothing really in English. I have Sighet Generations, which is in English. And then there is Romanian Genealogy, but there is mixed, is Jews and non-Jews.
Peninah, there's a question here from Judy,
Yes.
who's asking if you have any information on the Teller or Tiller Romanian family who had both Sephardic and Ashkenazi members. Teller or Tiller.
Teller sounds more like a Hungarian name.
Teller, T-E-L-L-E-R, or Tiller also.
T-E.
So Tango, Echo, Lima, Lima, Echo, Rome.
Teller, right.
Or Tiller.
Yeah. No, I don't. Can you ask Judy? Judy, what city did they come from?
I don't know if Judy, maybe I can unmute Judy. She can ask you.
Yes, thank you so much. They came from Bucharest.
Uh-huh.
And there were Sephardic members and Ashkenazi members who married each other.
I see. No, sorry, unfortunately, I can't answer you. I don't know.
Well, thank you anyway. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You mentioned one book. Are there maybe other books about the history of Sephardim in Romania, or is that the only one?
That's the one I found.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Now, wait. I read some references, but they were in Romanian.
Mhm.
So that's not very helpful. This one is half and half, Romanian and English.
Romanian looks a little bit like Italian, so
Mhm.
maybe.
Also, if you speak Spanish, Italian, or French, you can also understand Romanian, because Romanian is a Latin language. So all these other three are also based Latin. And there's lots of international words, even the word international. It's just that we pronounce it differently. But if you read a few paragraphs, you can figure out, you know, whatever you read is about, because it's really a very easy language.
Okay. Is there also a Romanian Jewish genealogical society?
That's the one I was saying about Michael, at the Jewish Gen. Yes, he is taking care of the Romanian part. Are you folks aware of Jewish Gen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'll get you in touch with Michael, and you'll be able to see what he has available. I know not too long ago, he obtained the records of marriage and birth of specifically Bucharest. So
That's great.
yeah, that could be a good source.
Yeah, you mentioned that the father of Haham Gaster was
Yes.
the consul for the Netherlands in Bucharest.
Yeah.
I looked up the Dutch, the archives of the Dutch consulate in Romania have been preserved from 1860. So his name will turn up there.
I think so, yeah.
And I even found one Sighet Gaster mentioned in those archives. And there's a dossier about him. And also about the Karel, which to me also sounds Sephardic. Have you ever come across the name Karel?
How do you spell it?
C-A-R-O.
Caro, sure. That is a Spanish name.
Yeah.
Caro, sure.
Nice. I think we are out of questions now. So, Ari, I think we'll conclude the evening. And as always...
Sorry, Ton. Sorry, I was on mute and I couldn't get myself heard. Bernard has a question.
Okay, that's the last question of tonight.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the talk, which was fascinating. I would love to know what evidence there is of the arrival of the Jews with the Romans. You mentioned that they came in the 2nd century, and I'm wondering whether there were Jews continuously between then and the arrival of the Sephardim. Whether you've ever heard anything about that. But you also mentioned the, I think it was the Elias family being advisors to the Prince of Romania. Or was that a different family? But presumably there are records to do with the princely household, or were they all destroyed under communism? Because generally royal households kept very good records of who people were, and they might contain more information on the families. And I have a question about cemeteries in general in Romania. Was it just Jewish cemeteries that were desecrated under communism, or was it all religious cemeteries? And if so, was there a difference in the way that they were treated? And I'm just going to throw in, I think he must have been the son of Moses Gaster, one of his 10 children, who was a leading communist in Britain in the early to mid 20th century.
Okay, I hope I'll be able to remember everything. If not, you'll repeat. So let me start. No, you raised some very important issues and questions. So let me start with the cemeteries. You said, were only the Jewish ones or in general? Yeah. So let's put it this way, that during communism time, whoever remained as a Jew in Romania had to do a few things if they wanted to survive economically and professionally. Many of them changed their names. Many of them moved and took new identities. You see, according to the census, there are only 5,000 Jews today in Romania. I wasn't born there. I was born in Haifa in Israel. I go to Romania since 98, okay, 10 years after the revolution. And I've had many, many opportunities to meet people who tell me, I was only 16 when I found out that I'm Jewish. And because of a neighbor who hated my mother, and she is a radio reporter, or someone that discovers that they were Jewish when they went to the city hall after both of their parents died to sell the piece of land and the house. And there it said in the register that Mr. X, whatever his name was, is Mosaic. Mosaic means Jewish. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it was very, very hard to live under communism as a Jew. Either you were a party member and you had your red book, and then even as a Jew, people knew that you are Jewish, but because, let's say, you were a great engineer or a doctor or a very important person in the Romanian army, they would pass the fact that you are Jewish, but you will have all the privileges. But if you didn't join the party and you didn't change your name and everybody knew that you were Jewish, you were just suffering. Now, going to the cemeteries, many people did not get buried in a Jewish cemetery during those years because of fear. What did Ceausescu do? He basically, it wasn't just him, it was the Communist Party. Anything that was Jewish had to be destroyed, because in communism, you do not practice any religion. There's no religion, there's the party, there is communism. There are no holidays. They invented holidays that we still observe today in Romania, even though officially there's no communism regime. So they've done a lot of damage to our Jewish heritage that we are trying in the last 33 years or the last 20 years, much more, to save everything that's possible and restore. So that was cemeteries. Ask me again something.
The other two were advisors to the princes, whether or not
the records.
princely records.
Yeah, the records. And the other one, how many? Okay, I know the other one.
Okay.
Records, the story with the records is like this. Very few records are being released because it's the constant fear. You see, the fear is, what are you going to do with the record? Why do you need the record? Because they constantly, even, you see, 33 years ago, somebody was 30. Today, they are only 60. They still are in the system, they work. So let's say he's an archivist. He's not going to give you the information unless you come with an authority, with a letter of authority. Let's say you want to write a book and the publisher writes that for the best book that can come out, you need this information. Then he's going to give it. But if you come as a Mr. X, you're not. Look, I'm going to look, I constantly look for records, simple ones, the name of the father, birth certificates, death certificates. Very seldom I go to look for something of an address of a house. Oh boy, when I come to look for an address of a house, it's like you throw on the archivist a block. He's so afraid. Why? Because I'll go supposedly and claim the house. So they still, again, I'm using the word supposedly, it's a republic, democrat country. But, you know, it took the Jews, sorry of the analogy, to wander in the desert for 40 years not to have the mentality of slaves. Well, here we are only on 33rd year this year. So they are still in the system and they are acting like they used to do before. Unless I bring a little gift, I say a good word, nothing moves.
Thank you.
So now you wanted to know, I mentioned about the 2nd century of having Jews, and you said if any other came through the years, constantly there were Jews arriving in Romania. You see, Romania is geographically positioned sort of close to the Far East, not to the Far East as Asia, but, you know, the minor Asia, the way we say, and also to Europe. And Romania was also, especially Bucharest, was called the Paris of the East. Yes, I didn't mention the French language was a very popular language. Beside Romanian, high society people spoke French, even in everyday discussions. So Romania was a very unique and special country that attracted people that were highly educated, highly cultural.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Peninah. I think we have run out of questions now. So I will hand over to Tom to say the last words and the goodbyes. But thank you for your very, very interesting talk. And hopefully you can join us again one day.
My pleasure.
Yes, a big thank you to Peninah for this lively talk and the interesting and moving and sometimes horrifying tales that you tell. And also thank you to Ali, who was a great stand-in for David Mendoza. And thank you to our patrons who make all of this happen. The video will be put on YouTube, I think sometime tomorrow. The next 3 weeks, we won't have meetings because of Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year, and we hope to see you all in the new year. And then we will start off with a very interesting program. Our planning is now finally running like clockwork, and have a happy Hanukkah, happy holidays, and happy New Year. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye. Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Okay, how do we get out of here?
Ali, you can end the meeting.
Okay.